All right, now I got to go back to screen sharing.
Well, the whole reason why I brought it up is because, Brenham is going through that whole transition, and I'm part of all the ARDs this summer to redo placements and stuff. So let me kind of backtrack because there's some that don't know. Brenham is a school district that has typically provided de minimis education for years. If a child has qualified as an ID student, they have immediately just pulled them out of the general classroom and put them in a self-contained unit. And that's where the child has stayed for years. The reason why I'm bringing this up right now is we're going through a whole transition where we're putting the kids back out into the general population with co-teach services, 50-50, meaning that they get, some services during the day for different classes and that kind of thing. But I bring it up because I have a severe child who parents are in complete denial. She has Down syndrome. She is ID, and the parents are, oh, she'll be on her own. She'll be able to tell the doctor how she feels. She'll be able to do this. And I'm having to go to an ARD meeting here in July to discuss placement. Well, our previous director had placated the parent and said, no, she can be out in general public with supports for her elective classes, but life skills services as well. But our basic life skills services in the past have been just a bona fide resource. It was a catch-all, just doing the bare minimum. And this child is at a pre-K level. She's almost to the point of being nonverbal, but she can walk around. She can sort of navigate. She can do some communication, but that's about it. Anyway, so I'm having to come to a meeting to discuss all that this summer. And I just wondered if you had any tips or anything, or maybe I can talk to you later about it. And you can
Yeah,
tell me more.
and we can talk about it later. I think we're touching on it right now, but I think that I don't think that a school district can ever force a family into acceptance. I don't think that that it's necessarily our role, and that I don't think it's within our power either. I think that we can gently guide families toward that by presenting factual information. And I think the first thing that we always have to do is to build a relationship. And let's go on to the next slide to talk about this a little bit more. Let's see. There's a resilience model that's discussed in your textbook that I think helps with this. Our first stage is identification of a disability. And then we want to help people with self-education so that they're identifying for themselves not only what the disability is, but the impact of that, and then what they can do from their perspective in relationship to the person with the disability. Then they reflect about their role toward that person, how they can help with advocacy and empowerment, and then appreciation and enlightenment. And all of this is a process that could be very compact for some families and very, very lengthy for others. So it depends a whole lot on the family dynamic. There are a couple of examples in your textbook, and we'll get to this bullet in a few minutes, but I want to touch on it quickly now. There's a couple of examples in chapter 4 about culture and how culture can impact how we interact with families. And I think that is so, so important. I remember a number of years ago when I was a director of special education in a relatively large district in the Metroplex. And this was a situation where we had a child in a kindergarten classroom on one of our campuses, and the teacher said, "This child has got to be put into special ed right now, out of my classroom into special ed." and just began to really, really fuss. And then the parents were not agreeing to that, to the evaluation. And the mother called me in tears. There was a language barrier. As it turns out, the family was, they were refugees from, I don't remember which Middle Eastern country, but it may have even been Syria. I can't remember exactly, but it was one of the Middle Eastern countries. And they were very upset that their child was being labeled in some way. It was very much a dishonorable thing for their child to be labeled as anything except typical. And the mother came to my office and brought examples of, she had notebook after notebook after notebook, spiral notebooks, probably 5 or 6 that she brought, and showed me of how she had practiced letters and numbers and words and colors and all these things with the child, and showed me, as evidence that here's what she can do. And I said, that's great, but some of the things that they're having difficulty with her in the classroom are, sitting still on her carpet square, not walking on the table in the lunchroom, some of these kind of things. It wasn't a matter of her not knowing her colors or not knowing her letters. It was some of these behavioral kinds of things. She kept taking off her shoes. Well, the mother and father invited the assistant director and I over to their apartment to talk with them. Well, when we walked in the apartment, what was the first thing they asked us to do? Take off our shoes. They didn't want us to walk on the carpet with our shoes on. And so I'm thinking, well, ding, ding, ding. Here's one of the reasons why the child is taking off her shoes before she gets on the carpet. This is a cultural issue. They don't, well, and of course, there are lots of Americans now who don't want people walking in their house with their shoes on, but she would not keep her shoes on the carpet. And the teacher had a real issue with that. But at home, she wasn't allowed to keep her shoes on the carpet. So we have a cultural issue. In their home, there only had 2 chairs in the home. All of the family, and there were a lot of them, they all sat on the floor surrounding the assistant director and myself. They put 2 chairs in the middle of the living room for us. And then they sat around us in a circle. It was the strangest thing. But I thought, okay, this is a whole different kind of environment than any of us are accustomed to. There was a lot of deference to the father in the family, just like in this example that's given in chapter 4. And then in the example in your textbook, the teacher then wants to reach out to the mom and have her come up and be very involved. But that's not going to work in that situation, because the mother is not accustomed to being a leader in that home situation. She's accustomed to taking a back seat and letting the dad be the spokesperson for the family. And so we've got to know the culture of the people that we're working with. We've got to be respectful of that. And we've got to build a relationship. So the family has to trust us. They've got to believe that we really care about their child. And until they believe that we care, they're not going to care a whole lot about what we have to say. So we've got to build that relationship. And then we've got to communicate. People have to know that that we care about their child and that we want to find out what their input is. We want to help parents with all of these common challenges that confront them. The challenges that ordinarily confront parents the most are this self-education advocacy, planning for the future. They're concerned about what's going to happen to their children later on, and they're concerned about other kids rejecting their child. And those are the number one things that parents are concerned about. Siblings are worried about not getting enough time with their parents. They're concerned about the jealousy that they have toward the sibling with the disability who seems to hog the limelight all the time. They've got added responsibility. And sometimes, whether we like to say it or not, they're embarrassed. They're embarrassed of their sibling who has the disability. And we don't like to acknowledge that one, but it's a reality. And so we need to bring it forward into the light and discuss it and acknowledge it. So how can we effectively partner with parents from the educator's side? Well, we've got to realize that sometimes we have this unequal relationship, and then we've got to work on taking that barrier down. We've got to realize that parents are their child's best advocate. They're the expert. They're the ones who've been there since birth. And even though we have our expertise in many ways, the parent is the number one expert because they've known the child since day one. They know what happens after hours. They know what happens at bedtime, at mealtime, all those idiosyncrasies that we don't necessarily see. So that's where we've got to get the communication on the same wavelength. We've got to work against that miscommunication that we sometimes have with families and work toward finding that common style of communication. We've got to find that similar agenda so that we all know that we're working toward the same thing with the child, the student, regardless of their age. We want what's best. Everybody wants what's best for the child. And then, like I said a moment ago, determining what those cultural differences are and then working through them. So all of you have been teachers, and you know that there are these words that we sometimes use to talk about kids. You also know, and many of you are parents as well, and I don't know if you've ever had a child of your own that you were called to school to hear about, but the words that we don't want to hear about our child, that nobody wants to hear, are that your child is a troublemaker, that they're unprepared, that they're a poor worker, that they're lazy, that they're a behavior problem. Nobody wants to hear any of those kinds of things. And so we need to take those words out of our own vocabulary and help teachers take those words out of their vocabulary. Sometimes it just needs to be a matter of awareness. Help people be aware of the vocabulary that they use when they're talking about children or when they're talking to children. And it can be as simple as just taking the child as the focus of the conversation off of the child and turn it to behavior. So consider using some of the words on the other side of the slide. The child disturbs the class. What does he do? He disturbs the class. He's not a troublemaker, but the thing that he does is disturbing. He comes to class without his supplies. He doesn't complete assignments. And of course, we all know that we want to start with the positives and then end with the negatives. So all of you, as I said last week in our webinar, what I want you to begin thinking about, even though some of you won't be doing this for another year or so, I want you to start thinking about your role outside of the box of a teacher, because you're moving away from that teacher role. You're becoming more of a consultant and less of a person who works one-on-one every day in a classroom with students. So you're moving into that consultative position where you're going to be advising other people. You're going to be advising teachers. You're going to be advising related service personnel. You're going to be advising administrators about the things that you have learned about children. And so these are the kinds of things that will go into your reports, into the things that you say in art committee meetings, that you can advise other people as they talk to families, as they talk to children. These are some things to think about, to consider, to work into their communication with families. So your book also talks about some person-centered planning strategies, some curriculi that do just exactly that. There's the McGill Action Planning System. It's called MAPS. And then there's one called COACH, which is the choosing options and accommodations for children. And those are a couple of systems that help us guide families toward planning futures for individuals, with the individual as very much the center and the focus of that. How do we determine the direction that we want to go with our instruction? And this is what chapters 5 and 6 look more at. We want to look at adaptive behavior scales, ecological inventories, self-determination scales. And one motto that we heard last week in a couple of the videos that we looked at, and I think should continue this week and throughout the whole semester, is nothing about me without me. So we don't want any decisions to be made about the future of a young person without their input or their consideration. Sometimes that may seem really hard to put into action if the person is extremely low functioning cognitively, but we want to include them to the greatest extent possible, no matter what. So that should always be in the back of our mind when we're dealing with future planning for any young adult, regardless of the disability. So how can we incorporate quality of life and self-determination into the IEP process? Well, we just talked about it. Those are the ways. So let's talk now a little bit about our class and the schedule that we have for the next couple of weeks. Does anybody have anything they want to say about the 3 chapters that we've just reviewed a little bit? Anybody? Okay. This week, we just have a discussion board and a quiz. So this is a little bit lighter week. That should be a welcome thing. No activity this week. So let's talk a little bit about the choice assignment. And then next week, we'll have a discussion board, a quiz, and then an activity. It's activity 2, but it will be covering unit 3. So it'll just be the second activity after last week's activity, activity 2, but covering unit 3. And that'll be in the list of things to do next week. And then the choice assignment will be due the next week. Now, let me say this as well, because the 4th of July is next Sunday. This week's assignments are due, this discussion board and the quiz are due this Sunday, which is, I think, the 26th or 7th or something like that. Look at my calendar. The 27th. So this week's assignments are due on the 27th. The following week is the 4th of July. And so I've just bumped that week's assignments to Monday, the 5th, okay? So that nobody will have an assignment due on Sunday, the 4th of July, in case you have plans with friends or a barbecue or an outing or something like that. So next week, everything will be due Monday night. Nothing due on Sunday night, the 4th, but Monday, the 5th. And I know that Monday is actually the official holiday, but that just gives you the whole weekend plus Monday, okay? Of course, you can get it in before that if you want. I'll open everything up at the beginning of the week, and we'll have our webinar on I guess, June the 30th. And I'll open up the quiz on July the 1st, and then you'll have until the 5th to get everything complete, okay? So let's talk, pardon me?
Can you open up the assignment 2 earlier? My daughter's going to be in town, and I would like to get it done before the 4th week, the whole weekend.
When are you wanting it opened?
Sunday?
Sunday instead of, yeah. I can open it Sunday.
All right,
This coming Sunday.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. And if the day begins and I haven't done it yet, just shoot me a text and remind me, okay? I'll try to remember. I'll write myself a note right now. Okay.
Thank you.
But you know, sometimes I forget. I blame that on the year of my birth. Okay. All right. So what I want to do now then is I'm going to stop sharing this and I'm going to start sharing this. Let me find it here. I've got the document that goes with the choice assignment. So the choice assignment, like I say, is not due until the next week, but you may want to start thinking about it now, okay? But remember, there's another assignment due before this. And you know what, Michelle Guest, I will go ahead and open this before then, but I'll open assignment 2 before then. I'll open assignment 2 and the choice assignment before then, okay? So let me see, where is this page? Choice assignment. That should be right here. Oh, there it is. Okay. All right. Can y'all see choice assignment option A? All right. This assignment, you've got 2 choices of how you want to approach this. And this is a curriculum, this is a look at the curricular approach to dealing with students with significant disabilities. And you know, there are a lot of philosophies about how we work with students with significant disabilities. The videos this week talk about several different approaches. One of those videos that has the 2 women talking about using grade level standards, grade level objectives, kind of integrates into this notion right here. So this first one is developing instructional materials to support the learning of a student with intellectual disabilities. And some of you who have taught more significantly impaired populations may already have a whole slew of these kinds of activities at the ready. And that's okay with me if you want to use something like that you already have put together, or if you want to get creative and come up with something, or talk to some of your teacher friends, or look online. There are tons of resources out there, and this may be a good thing. I want you to continue to look at the class as with the lens of, I'm going to have a consultative mindset in the near future. Whether I'm a diagnostician next year or the next year, I want to be able to talk materials. I want to be able to talk strategies with the people that I'm guiding in the next couple of years. As I become an educational diagnostician, I'm going to write reports. I'm going to make recommendations and suggestions, both in ARD meetings and as I talk to people and as I write reports. I want to have some things in my toolbox about how to advise people with strategies to work with students. So the purpose of this assignment is to give you an opportunity to develop some instructional materials for supporting student learning within an educational setting. It's oftentimes necessary to adapt instruction for students according to their individual needs. One common way to adapt instruction is to create instructional materials that support or scaffold for students' learning. For this assignment, you'll identify a specific skill to be taught, identify a specific learning deficit that would impede a student's acquisition of that identified skill, create materials designed to scaffold and support the student's learning, and give an explanation of the instructional materials along with a demonstration on video of how it's to be used. Now, this video is just going to be a couple of minutes as you talk and demonstrate. So here are the steps for this assignment. Identify a specific skill, whether it's academic or behavioral, or it could be, pre-academic, kind of maybe even a vocational kind of skill that you'll likely be teaching in your future classroom. Consider the disability types that you'll have, that you've studied in this course. Choose a disability type and consider the various ways that it would likely impede the learning of the student, of the skill you identify in step 1. And then create simple, original, and durable, something that you could use repeatedly, instructional materials for the purpose of addressing the learning difficulty caused by the disability. And then create about a 2-minute video demonstrating the use of your instructional materials. And then you'll identify the knowledge and skill you're addressing with your instruction, identify the disability type and how it would impede learning, introduce your instructional materials and explain how you would use them to address the student's learning difficulty, and demonstrate how the learning materials work to support or scaffold student learning. And then you would upload a picture of the learning materials along with a written paragraph for each of the steps listed above, and then a video of your instructional demonstration. And then here is a rubric of what's expected. So that is choice 1. Okay. Now, any questions about choice 1? All righty. So then let's look at choice B. So here's choice B. And this is an infusion assignment. So this is a slightly different approach to curricular inclusion, if you will. This assignment is based on the idea that students with significant needs in terms of their disabilities, those who are working to learn life skills, can A, access the general curriculum with their peers, and B, work towards mastery of their IEP goals through the process of infusing their goals into assignments within inclusive instructional settings. You are presented with a middle school student, Susan, who joins her typical peers within an inclusive setting for 2 periods a day, art and PE. Use Susan's IEP goals and class lessons for art and PE to develop adapted, aligned activities and assessments. So you read Susan's IEP goals and the general education classroom assignments. You determine which IEP goals can be infused into each of the assignments. You devise an activity for adaptations to the existing classroom activity for each class lesson that you could recommend using consultative collaboration to the general education teachers. And that would allow, that says Jill, I think her name is Susan, to participate while working toward mastery of her IEP goals. Place your information in a planning matrix, such as the example matrix you see below, and elaborate 3 to 4 pages on your choice of activities and assessments. Note that more than one of Susan's goals may apply to each general education lesson. And then we have an example. Suppose the student had the following IEP goals. And so you've got some goals there. And then you've got some classroom activities. And you want to look at how you would take her goals and infuse them into the classroom activities. And then what you've got down here is a sample of the infusion assignment matrix. All right.
Okay.
Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So you've got 2 choices, choice A and choice B. Choice A is the instructional materials side of things, and choice B is the infusion into what's already going on in the class. So you can take either approach to looking at the curricular side of how we work with students with significant disabilities. All right.
Okay. So can you talk about assignment 2 real quick?
Assignment 2. Assignment 2 is also curricular in nature. Let me get to it. I didn't pull it up specifically, but it's on. Let's see. Taking me a minute to get to it. Just a second. Well, does anybody have assignment 2 pulled up? My Tarleton page isn't coming up. You know what? Let me see. I've got it on this other computer. Let me just look at it real quick.
On mine, it just says this activity is not yet posted.
Okay, let me pull it up on this other computer. And I won't be able to show it to you, but I'll be able to talk about it for a second. Okay. On activity 2, hang on. I'm ready to throw this Tarleton computer in the trash. Nope, I just lost it. Here we go. All right. You're to identify a skill. Nope, I lost it. Identify a skill to be taught to a student with a significant intellectual disability. Describe the use of a particular instructional tactic that you would get from pages 131 through 145 of your textbook that could be implemented to support the learning of the skill. It's a 25-point activity. And that's all I can get to right now. I'll go ahead and I'll probably open that tonight so that you can look at it, okay? How's that, Michelle? You like that idea? Michelle Guest? Let's see. You're muted.
Yep. I love that idea because that way I can knock it out.
Okay.
I'm having to learn so many different stuff right now with the farm and stuff. So.
Okay. I'll go ahead and open up both of these activities, the one that's due next week on the 5th, and then the choice assignment, so you can start deciding what you want to do with that. And that's not due till the following week. Okay. So look at that little, there's that little chart that shows you all the different things that are due on the different dates for the semester. And that'll kind of give you an idea of what's due when. And if you've got any questions, just shoot me an email. Okay.
Okay.
So
Sounds good.
let's come up with a key question for me to add to the quiz for tomorrow that's related to tonight's discussion. Okay. I hadn't thought of anything yet. Anybody have a great idea?
What about your husband doing all the work himself?
Or we could make it class related. We could make it related to the topic of our class. Anybody want to do that?
I don't think everybody's muted.
Everybody's
You
muted.
can do the motto.
Oh, that's a great idea, Rachel. I like that.
The
Okay.
what?
The motto that was there on the screen a minute ago about, I can't remember it right verbatim, but it's on that slide, and I'll post that PowerPoint about nothing about me without me or something like that. So why don't we do that? That's a great idea, Rachel. I like that. Then it's not about Dr. Cavan again this week. I like it. So we'll let you, let's use a different word than motto. Let's say, what are the magic words? What are the magic words for students with, what are the magic words for students with,
Severe disabilities.
with significant disabilities in future planning, something like that? Okay.
Well, is related to the self-determination scale.
Okay. So can you, Kyla, can you think of a good way to word a question about that?
Just something about a, what is the self-determination slogan? Or
Okay, something to that effect. That'll be the last question.
Okay.
And just write verbatim what it says on that slide, okay? Now I went back into anybody that didn't get the raccoon question. If you misspelled raccoon, or if you put dead raccoon or raccoons versus raccoon, I tried to give everybody credit if it was anything about a raccoon, because I had several people that had variations of that and it didn't give you credit automatically. So I went back in. I think I got everybody. If you wrote something about a raccoon and didn't get credit, let me know and I'll go back in and give you credit for that. Okay, so our extra credit question will be about self-determination and the slogan that goes with it. So I'm going to go in and add that now and open up the quiz and post the webinar. I'm sorry, post the webinar and post the PowerPoint and open up those two assignments that are in the next few weeks. What else? What else do I need to do?
I was trying to look. I was looking last night to see if the discussions were up, and I didn't.
I just opened this week's discussion. I think it was this morning because I forgot about it. Because there's too many things to do.
I gotcha.
All right, so I'll open next week's discussion on Sunday. Okay. Okay. Anything else?
I just don't want him to. Yeah.
Thank y'all for attending. And you don't have to attend, but you do have to watch at some point because we discuss things that I want everybody to get their mind wrapped around. Okay. So you don't have to attend, but you do have to watch. And I like it when you attend because it gives me somebody to talk to. Okay. And I'm lonely this summer.
Aw.
So Michelle B, I'm going to see you tomorrow, right?
Yes.
Okay. I'm about to send you your Zoom invitation.
Okay. Sounds
I haven't done
good.
that yet either. That's on my list too. Okay, so I'll send you your Zoom. I'll see you at 2 tomorrow. Anybody else? Okay,
I think I had a question for you, but I'll text you or email you about my questions.
okay. Everybody else good? All right, good to see you. We'll sign off for tonight. I'm ending the recording and I'll post this whole thing if anybody needs to see it. And for those who didn't watch tonight. Okay, I weren't on tonight, okay? So I'll see you. If you need anything, let me know. Talk to you later.
Thank you.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Bye.